Hello and welcome to another video. So I'm going to give you a step-by-step guide of how to do the steering knuckle ball joints. I've seen many videos on there. There's a few do's and don'ts. There's a few things you need before you start, what I'd recommend, and there's a few things I wouldn't do. Now, one of the things I would not do, and you can see it in a few of the videos, is when people come to, I'll show you when the wheel's off and later on in the video, but when the actual knuckles are exposed on the end of the axle and they're removing the bottom ball joint, they use a C clamp, and what they're doing, they're pushing the bottom ball joint out by pushing against the top part of the axle, and you can actually see the axle flexing. Now, whether it goes back to its original state, I don't know, but I've actually made a tool that will stop that happening, and I'll show you later on in the video. So stay tuned and let me show you what's needed. So today's job requires a few tools, as you can see. This kit is not necessarily needed. The only reason I use this kit is because I quite like these sort of centering pins on top of the sleeves. It's actually a bush extractor kit, but it works very well for this job. This one was also the same, but we do need a couple of different sizes to get the ball joints out. But the absolute crucial tool is this one here. I'll put the link in the description. I bought this years ago, but as you can see, it's had a fair amount of use. We also need one of these. This is the best way of getting the steering knuckle off. Ball joint separator for the steering track rod and drag links. These are the special cups my friend made for me. I'll send you the dimensions if you do. This one works out perfectly for removing the bottom ball joint and also pushing it in, and this one for the top. As you see, you welded the top up so the bottom of the clamp doesn't go through. Now, there's a few things you need to order, so before you do it, tackle this job, you might as well change the seal on the output shaft on the diff, because you're there anyway, so you might as well change it. They're only about £2. I'll show you how to remove that. And the other thing I would get is new bolts. These bolts are the bolts that hold in the hub, and you'll find, well, the last 6 or 7 I've done have been completely rusty, so for the sake of £1, these are very good to have. And actually they cross-reference to this part number here. If I can actually get it open, I'll put it in the description, but it's the same bolt, pinch bolt, that the Rover 75 and the MGZT use on the front suspension to the hub. Same grade. Actually, I'll tell you what the grade is. And the other thing you're going to need is a ABS sensor, because chances are it's been in there a long time and they're push fit and they're going to disintegrate, but you might be lucky. The other side I've done, I had to buy a new sensor, so just bear that in mind and don't buy the cheap ones because they only last a few months. Anyway, let's get started. So, we've got the wheel removed. We're about to take off these 12mm, well, actually we're taking them off, they're 12mm bolts that hold the caliper on. And so there's a bolt here that holds the brake line on, and there's a bolt down in here, which I've already removed, which holds the ABS cable on. Now, the cable is, the bolt will be fairly badly corroded, so these are meant to be 8mm, so I've hammered a 7mm multi-spline socket on there, and the same for this one, and it's coming out, so hopefully yours won't be as bad as that. But so next stage, I'm going to take the caliper off and I'm going to cable tie this. Once this is removed from up here, I'm going to hang it up there so there's no snagging on the pipe, and then we'll move the carrier, and then we'll remove the disc, and then we will remove the heat shield. Again, 8mm bolts, but I imagine they're going to be absolutely corroded, so we'll probably have to do the same bash on the 7mm. And then we are ready to undo the drag link and the steering link. Both, I think they're 18-19mm bolts, and then we will separate those. So, alright, so that's all the bits stripped off. These are 19mm hex multi-spline socket bolts for the caliper carrier. The 8mm bolts which were in here I've seen better days. I'll replace those. I'm going to clean this up and paint it before I put it on. This is the brake shield. Now, so we're up to this point. So I've separated the track rod ends, and I didn't use the hammering method, I just used this, and I pushed it in. It doesn't damage the rubbers if you're careful, and it came off fairly easily. So we're now up to the point where we need to remove the ABS sensor. So this is a push fit. This is what I mean, they can get destroyed getting them out, but this one doesn't look that old, and it looks like someone's already had a go at it, so we'll see. I have got a new one in case. Spray the hub bolts with lots of WD-40 or whichever penetrating fluid you prefer. Also start spraying these up as well. This is the ball joints we're replacing. You can see these are pretty old. They don't really play in them, and sometimes the telltale sign is that the hub seal starts leaking, but that's not leaking on this. So we're going to remove these 4 bolts here. They're 15mm if I remember right, and we're going to remove the nut under here. I think that's 22mm, and I think that's 21mm upper. Actually, just as well we're changing these because there's a split in the rubber there. Now there's a adjustment nut here. I think it's about 36mm. Don't touch it. This is for the alignment. So when the shaft goes into the axle, and make sure it's centered here. If you start messing with that, you're gonna have to realign it. So don't touch that. Just undo the nut underneath, but not this big one here. Leave that alone. Now, word of warning: if you've really struggled to get to this point, because you haven't got the correct tools, or you're just generally struggling, or you haven't got much time left, give up, put it back together, and maybe seek a garage to do it. Because if you struggle to this point, that was easy. And these are going to give you, they can give you a real ball ache to get out. So as I say, just a word of warning: if you've struggled to get to this point, maybe leave it to a professional. But if you want to give it a go, just keep following. Right, that was difficult. So that's what's left of the ABS sensor. It's not fully out. I actually had to chisel away underneath it. I don't know if you can see that or not, but basically the reason why you got to remove that is because you can't slide this drive shaft out without it out, because it'll snag on the, basically it sits in the CV joint for the ABS sensor ring. So all 4 hub bolts are now out. Now the reason I say to replace these bolts is because look at the state of them. So I made a mistake earlier. They're not 15mm, they're 14mm, but they've swollen, some of them, so only a 15mm socket will go on them. So that's why I recommend replacing them. So we're now at the stage where I'm going to remove the hub. Leave this nut alone. Unless you're going to change the CV joint or the boot, you don't need to remove it. What we're going to do, we're going to pull this hub so it separates from here. I've got a little, where is it? Little chisel tool to remove it if needs be. If not, I'm just going to get the copper hammer behind here and here, and normally they free up. And then we're going to slide the whole drive shaft complete. This side's the short end because it's the diffs obviously just right there, and we'll take the whole lot out. well, that was tough. So this is now out. I'll bang through the rest of that ABS sensor later. So now it's a case of getting these nuts off. But while you've got the shaft out, just inspect the ring in here, because they have a tendency of splitting and they'll give you an ABS fault or trigger no ABS when you're driving. But this one's dirty, but it's fine. It's got a little dent where I chiseled it earlier, so I'll straighten that. But we are good. Normally, they're not that hard to get off. That must be the most difficult one I've ever had to get off. So anyway, on to the next bit. For God's sakes, I've just done the whole video again and not videoed it. So this, unfortunately I didn't video it because I'm an idiot. This, I normally drive a fork into the top. Bear in mind I don't care about this ball joint or this ball joint because they're both being replaced. And then I put this contraption underneath, along with a lot of heat normally, and either this ball joint pulls out of this ball joint completely or it separates. But in this case I use this fork and the whole thing just fell off. That's never happened to me. This is my 7th pair of ball joints on a P38 and a Discovery 2. It's the same principle for these ball joints on a Discovery 2, and it's never happened. So maybe that makes up for why it was so difficult to get out of the hub. But at the bottom, this is the nut I mentioned earlier, not to adjust. Leave it alone, it doesn't need to come out. What it does is the alignment for the shaft, or the half shaft that goes into the hub there, so don't touch it. That's the answer to that. Right, here comes the difficult bit. So I'm going to leave it playing while I fit these. So what I said earlier about people doing this wrong, so this one pops out the top. Make it sound easy, it's not that easy. So we need to find a cup to push this up, and a cup big enough so this can push up through using a C-clamp. Now the bottom one pushes out, and I've seen people using that C-clamp to push this against that frame here, this mount, well, I don't know what you call it, but this fork. Now if you watch their video you actually see this fork bending. It's very slow, but it actually bends upwards. I don't like that because I'm pretty sure they're deforming it or weakening it, or worst case you could actually snap it. At the moment this is 24 years old, metal fatigue. I've never seen one snap, but let's not tempt fate, shall we? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to get this one out, and then I'm going to put a cup underneath and push this down through the C-clamp and the cup underneath it, so it's not going to put any strain on the top. But the top one does need to come out first, so I can put the thread of the clamp up through here so I can get clearance. So next stage is to set the clamp up to get the ball joint out. So I've gone for, unfortunately this doesn't have a size on it, but if you've got a kit that is 72 by 29, and I've got the clamp from the C-clamp box, there's a bit of a mix of all three here, but apply a lot of heat to the ball joint before you do this, which I'm doing at the bottom here while I'm doing the top one. So don't be alarmed, this will catch fire because it's obviously burning the rubber off the boot. You can try and get rid of it, but it'll still burn. Unfortunately the flame's not very good because it's so cold, but apply the pressure and you'll see, you'll suddenly hear a noise and it will free. You can see the gap there. So now that is ready to come out. Didn't take very much, just that bar there. Give it a little tap and then out she comes. So let me finish that one off. So now I've got a bit of a warmer gas pot, so I've got a bit more heat in there. So what we're going to do, this is the one we made, and we're going to put this underneath, and that will support the bottom of the C-clamp. That will go up through the hole, and then we just push that out. So there's no pressure being applied to this top bracket at all. As you see in other videos, people do this. Alright, so I've applied the bottom clamp. You can see this is still hot, just to prove it. And I haven't started winding this yet. So let's see. As I say, it's only going through this hole, it's not putting any pressure on it. Now I'm going to do this with one hand. Hear that? So she's coming out. You can see it coming out. And then there's a hole in the bottom of that clamp, which is letting the ball joint go through it. And excuse the huffing, there's quite a lot of pressure in this. And you can see I'm now not putting much pressure on that at all. And there it comes. As easy as that. Now, if you get the wrong size bottom joint, which one of these is, and it's not quite sitting right, you'll find it's very difficult to get out if it's not quite squared. So find one that fits best. Right, let me take this off. I'm going to pop this seal out. It literally just pulls out. Sometimes they're a bit stiff, so if you've got a seal puller, great. If not, in the past I've just used a screwdriver. Just don't damage the inside of the edge. Alright, 2 minutes and I'll be back. So I've given them a quick clean up inside the ball joints where they press into, and I've also taken the seal out. This is the tool I used. I think I paid £9 off of Amazon. Very useful. This is the new seal. So the metal side goes in first, like that. And this is the part number FTC4822. And what I'm going to do is going to find one of these that fits the outer ring there. Not this ring, but this one here. And then I'm going to drive her home into the space. I can't do it while filming, unfortunately, but so don't press anything in this section here or here. It has to be on this outside ring. Now this does fold forward a little bit here, so you can get a one of these rings or spaces on them. All right, so bear with me a minute. Okay, so that's driven home. I used a 68 by 58. It fits perfectly on there. It's a little bit snug, but if you would make sure you lube it up, fit that over the ring, just tap her home. You'll feel when it's seated. This is the old one, and just make sure it's square all the way around. Okay, so we are going to move on to the ball joints, putting them back in. So bottom one's to go first. Now I've been keeping these in the freezer for the last couple of days. So this is the bottom ball joint, FTC 3571, I believe that is. I'll put these in the description. This is the second time I've used the Brit Part ones. I'm actually rather impressed. I've used Delphi ones in the past and they weren't that great. I don't know if Brit Park actually make these, but let me show you, they're actually quite shiny. So here they are. So it's been in the freezer, so I better hurry up before it warms up. So I'm going to smear a bit of grease around the top here. Grease around in the joint with the camera focus. And I'm going to find a sleeve that will fit the outside ring of that. And then to start it, what I use from the same kit, the C-clamp kit, I put this in the top here because of the recess. It actually fits in quite nicely and stops it moving around. But we can only go in about halfway because obviously the top of the ball joint will then hit the cap. So we will use another sleeve once that's halfway, but it's great for getting it started. So let me come back to you in a minute. Okay, so I've lined the clamp up. As I said just now, the little clamp on, cap on top is there. The sleeve is here. The thread does just about hang through. I don't know if you can see that. You can. The thread of the ball joint just about pops through the bottom, so just watch that doesn't snag. So I haven't started this, so let's see if I can do it with one hand. I don't know if you can see that. She's going in. It's going in quite nicely. So I'm waiting for it to pinch. I'm actually putting minimal effort here, and it's just started pinching, so the ball joint is now touching the top of this C-clamps. Right, let's change the cap over. I will keep using the same one on the bottom. I'm just going to flip this cap over. That's all I'm going to do. I'm not changing it, I'm just flipping it over. And if I remember right, that is just enough to push it home. Just watch it doesn't snag on the thread underneath, which is not good. Okay, let's see if she's still quite easy. Yeah, it's going in. The clamp's moved a little bit, so I'm just going to loosen it off, move it back over. This clamp is absolutely knackered. I've done so many ball joints with this clamp. So I'm going to drive it home. So you want to make sure this face is back up to the top. And I'm just going to go a little bit more, that's it. And that, just check, is fully, yeah, it's not even touching the top, so we are, it's only halfway up that cap, so we are home. Good. Right, let me go and get the other one. A little bit of grease around the top that pushes in. So this one's a bit confusing, so it's not this section that goes in, it's the bottom section. I did make a mistake once of pushing it the wrong way. So that goes in there like that. And this is what my friends have made this one for. So the other problem I've got, this clamp has been used so much that the end of it's no longer level. It's had some punishment in its time. But if you're going to buy a new clamp, it should be a bit easier than this. Here we go. Okay, so we're going in, that's better. So, she's halfway home. So I am going to swap that over, because obviously it's not hollow in there. And I'm going to put that back on top like that. It's a bit past it. And I'm going to use a different one. Which one can I use? That one. Yeah, if it will fit, which it will not. Okay, how did I do this last time? So I must use this one. Yeah, which is now a little bit damaged, but and hopefully the thread's not catching. That will drive home the rest of it the way, but it is not because it's moving. So I'm going to have to swap the bottom one over. You might bear with me a sec. Make sure I didn't damage the rubber. No, she's all good. Alright, so I'm going to stick that back on top, and I'm going to find, actually, do you know what, that is going to fit. Ignore me, I am talking out of my backside. So let's line that up perfectly on there, so it's not going to snag. I'm going to tilt the clamp round so the way it's going to go without snagging the rubber. Okay, here we go. I'm just going to swap over ratchet and breaker bars. Oh, that's a bit better. Why struggle? Right, that's it. And there we are. That's 2 ball joints now in place. Let's make sure nothing's damaged. From. No, we are in. Okay. Alright, so there we have it. 2 ball joints in. Easy when you've got the correct tools. No damage to the rubber there. That's just a seam, so it's not crack. So we need to put the hub back on. Sorry, the steering knuckle back on, and then followed by the hub. These came with 2 new bolts. I put the bolt torques in the description, so they just slide back up, and we'll do those up, and then it's just a case of reassembly. I hope you found that useful. I'll keep the video playing of the reassembly, and I'll keep the torque values coming forward. So hopefully you found that useful. Sorry it's a bit long-winded. It is a long job, although this job has taken me, since I started filming this with you, 1 hour and 45 minutes. When I first did this, it took me a whole day to do one side and a whole day to do the other side. So if it's your first time, give yourself some time, and hopefully you found that useful. And just don't make sure you follow the other videos, not slagging the other guys off obviously, but I don't want this bending upwards to push this out. So you saw my clamp I used and the sleeve, and it came out easily. So it's got dark. I had to go and pick up the ABS sensor, but so this is the new ABS sensor. Comes with a little cradle that pushes in there. It comes with some anti-seize compound, and this brand is APEC. I used it for the other side and it seems quite good. It's around £45. So that pushes into there. I'm gonna get a mallet and tap it home. It has to go all the way, and then the wiring goes up into the under the bonnet, and there's a 2-pin connector that we need.
Right, join me the next morning. A nice cold one again. So that's one side done. So I'd roughly budget 4 or 5 hours if it's your first time doing this. And I would also recommend getting the wheel alignment done after, because mine has slightly shifted, so make sure you book that. Anyway, it's a long job. It's probably the longest job there is, but hopefully you enjoyed that. Like and subscribe and put your comments below. Thank you very much.